Okay, we're ready. Hey everyone, welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing terrific, Todd. Just before Turkey Day.
Yes. And I think you and I are both having a better day than some other podcast hosts out there today.
Oh, I can't imagine who you might be talking about.
Well, it's not just Anchor. There's others that are down too.
There's other ones too.
Yeah.
So this is impacting more than so
yeah.
Who else?
So RSS.com is offline.
Oh.
And Podpages is having issues. And Schoology is having issues. A lot of folks there's a big AWS outage going on right now. So Stitcher's got some stuff going 503. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of podcasts not getting delivered this afternoon.
Pre-Thanksgiving fun.
We're pretty much an exclusive AWS house. All our stuff sits on AWS. And, we've got really several, I guess there's several things that can never go down. One is the redirect. Our redirect for our stat server, we've talked about on the show here before. That's one that can't go down. So it's like you set up a fail-safe and a fail-safe and a fail-safe.
Right. Right.
And really, those servers are sitting idle in some other data center because we basically set a fail-safe rule of 10 seconds. So if the main server goes down,
right,
10 seconds we're on the fail-safe box.
Yeah, it rolls over, right?
Yeah, and it reroutes to another data center. And, that doesn't come cheap when you have to maintain basically the server that's maybe costing you $1,000 a month is replicated 1,000, and it's just sitting there idle.
Just ready to go.
Just ready to go. And
its database has to be synchronized, though.
Well, the way we do our stuff is the data is pulled. We have backup databases, but if this server goes down, the log files stop, and then we can download those log files whenever we get that server back online, and then the secondary server picks up with log files. So it's pretty seamless from our infrastructure standpoint.
Yeah.
But you can only plan so much, so you have this piece, and it's a risk assessment on, at some point, all of us are going to get whacked. Something's going to happen. Cable's going to get cut, or semi's going to run off the road and cause a building to get burnt down where your fiber goes through. You just never know, and you just, it's never fun when stuff goes offline. But I guess bits and pieces of a variety of services have been out for about 4 hours now. So actually almost going on 5 hours.
Yeah, what's funny about it is that the whole concept of cloud hosting was to distribute internet content across multiple servers, so you don't have this issue. But I guess you have to pay extra to get
absolutely
that now, right?
Because if you run East and you want to make sure that if that data center goes down or pieces of that data center, and you want to have something sitting over at US West, you can't just like put in a $10 a month server over here to be, because you it has to be able to come up to speed. So you just kind of like look at everything. And I think we were involved in an S3 outage 3 or 4 years ago. And so basically podcasts were getting uploaded, but they weren't making it to the CDN, so we weren't able to publish new episodes for 2 or 3 hours. And, at what cost? Because I know how much all that extra, what that costs to replicate our S3 storage.
Right.
Whew. And luckily S3 doesn't go down very often, but for 2 or 3 hours, I was kind of, contemplating whether I'd made the right decision. But, 5 years, and again, knock on wood, we all get our turn in the barrel. 5 years later, I'm probably, $50,000, less spent on server bills every year by taking, you just apply a certain amount of risk. But for us, certain stuff just could never go down. And
Right.
the redirect server is one of those. Now, I know you guys have you said you guys have your servers in some, you guys don't do cloud. You guys have your own server someplace.
Yeah, but there's replication going on there too. So it isn't like it's just
right
on dedicated servers. There's servers that, can be rolled over and things like that. It's really kind of the same infrastructure. It's just not at Amazon.
Right.
Right. So, and it's in multiple data centers and things like that. So, and that's common, especially on the CDN side. Now, granted, we're kind of getting in the weeds here a little bit on the podcast hosting business, but I think the key takeaway here is that oftentimes people will say in the space that there's, the podcast hosts don't have any costs, right, to do what they do, right? So it's like, oh, it's free to host all this stuff. Well, sure, the bandwidth prices have come down, but there's a lot of other costs that go into maintaining a robust, fast network that services media.
I think we're 50 or 60 servers total.
Right.
To do everything.
Yeah. This is complicated stuff.
Yeah. And then not counting the backups that have to be backed up.
Right.
So I'm just talking about active boxes that are doing things right now. We ran into something the other day where, our stats have grown and grown just like any other company stats have. And, the I guess better words, a logarithm that we use to process data, just, it basically said, hey, I can't keep up no more. So we had to put on, it's not that the logarithm or the processing was bad. It's just, I've got the biggest server I possibly can buy. And it's processing millions of records an hour, but I am at a point where it basically, so now I've split it. So now I've put on another one of those, $1,000 a month boxes. Right. So that, I get another 2 or 3 years before I have to put a third one on or whatever, so, but things seem to exponentially grow. It's just like, so I was, talk with the team. I'm like, okay, or with Angelo, I'm like, all right, is it time we look at this? Because he's like, no, we're good. I'm just spin up another box and we'll split the task and, no big deal. But hey Rob, there is no cost to running a podcast hosting company. None.
That's right. So a site like Anchor, a lot of people don't really realize what happened there. Somewhat is from what we gather anyway, is that Anchor was building infrastructure and they weren't generating much revenue. So guess what they had to do? They had to sell, right? So now they have big money behind them and they can do a lot of stuff, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to be up.
No.
Right. Though I think customers in the podcasting space are not exactly forgiving for being down.
Well, they have been so far today because, and it's just, my point goes back to,
well, they have to be forgiving to some degree.
Yeah, they don't pay nothing for it.
It happens, but
right.
They're not happy about it. Right.
So, and Sean in the chat room says that Anchor distributes all of its shows for $1 a month in server costs. What's the big deal?
Right. Yeah.
Here's what
that's exactly accurate.
Here's what I always tell people. I used to be able, 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I could pay my hosting bill and my CDN bill on a credit card. Now there is no more paying the CDN, and there is no more paying the hosting company or Amazon on a credit card. That doesn't happen. They tell me about 3 hours before they hit my bank account what the bank draft's going to be.
Right.
And when it's $35,000 or 40 or 50.
Banks don't like to float numbers that large on a credit card.
No. And if you have a corporate card, you make 25, 30,000 maybe on a corporate card. You don't want to have that much credit on there just from a risk standpoint that some employee goes rogue and buys a car, right? And so
it's all about mitigating risk, and that's where you get into this area.
But then when you see the email, actually we have a I get an email once a week that comes, and it basically says, "Here's where your bill's at," and you kind of know, and yeah, so you better have the money in the bank too when they come to draft that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you've got 72 hours
to make it good,
or they turn the switch off.
That's right. It's just a click of a button on a screen.
Right?
Right?
All your services cease to operate.
Right. It's really easy to do. Yes.
Yeah. So you get this wake up, So, I won't go into details, but that's never an issue.
Right. Yeah.
But it does give you pause when you say, "Oh, look at the bank balance. Hey, we're doing great." Yeah. Barry says, "By the way, the CDN and AWS bill's hitting tomorrow." Oh,
thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Good news. Right. It's like payroll. You're looking good the day before payroll.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, podcast hosting costs nothing.
Yes. Well, I think we've driven that point home now.
Not to mention, Rob, I've got probably you guys too. We've got an empty office building. I've been paying rent for 9 months now, and nobody in the office.
Yeah. Do you foresee needing it again? Do you think?
Yeah, I want the team back in the office.
You want the team back? Yeah.
Yeah, it's more efficient.
Yeah, it's the same with us too. We have an office in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have people back, but I think we're pushing it off further for obvious reasons.
Yeah. So
yeah,
probably sometime next year. I see the podcast event in the UK pushed their event to July. I got a notification that they're moving
the podcast show.
Yeah, they're moving to their second date, so they don't feel that travel restrictions and so forth will be off by April. So, but I think July is probably
there's a good chance. Yeah, there's a good chance by then.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how things work out with all these vaccines.
Yeah.
A bunch of them coming out, but still unknown how effective they're really going to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, we should probably talk a little bit about podcast stuff. It's always a steady flow. I mean, even up to the day before Thanksgiving, and outside of the U.S., it's not as, this holiday isn't that important. But,
right.
But the Australian Podcast Awards announced their winners, as I saw in the Pod News. That's great to see. A lot of great stuff going on down in Australia in the podcasting space. So a lot of new content, a lot of companies doing great stuff down there. So I just wish I would have been able to go down there and get a little more involved in that market, which I was planning on doing. But,
well, there's always next year, Rob.
Yes, there is.
But true. Australia is a heck of a long haul.
It is a long ways. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, almost. It's actually even bad from Hawaii. It's like 13 hours or something.
Yeah, that's true.
And I made that flight from Honolulu to Sydney.
Yeah, you did. Was it last year? I think you flew down there. Or early last year?
Was it early last year? Yeah, maybe it was. Maybe it was. And I was there for 40 hours.
Yeah. I remember that. You doing that.
Yeah, I did.
I think you were flying around a lot back then. Same with me, though.
Yeah. So, but this one was Shoko worked for Hawaiian Airlines, so we got basically free tickets. Basically did a Space A down and back during a lull. So I flew down first class, came back in coach. So first class 13 hours is not bad.
Yeah,
not bad at all.
Did you also see this article in the New York Times about a labor union dispute with management at the Ringer?
No, I don't read the New York Times. So what was the?
Well, I don't really either.
There's a labor with Ringer. They're still around.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, you think back to the early days of the Gimlet deal with Spotify. It kind of sparked this unionizing that was kind of spinning up around that company, and I believe it's falling into the Ringer company as well, since that's also owned by Spotify.
Interesting.
And so there's
Spotify bought Ringer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's a content deal, but I thought that they actually bought the network.
I see.
It's with the Bill Simmons, the former sports podcaster, broadcaster. So I guess he founded the Ringer back in 2016, and I guess his employees formed a union last year, months before the company was sold to Spotify. And so, now these editors and producers and directors and stuff have formed a union. So that could be something that spreads across the industry as you look to the future, but who knows?
Depends on, some states are more conducive to it than others.
Right, sure.
And, this usually happens when big money comes into a company.
Yep, exactly.
So...
That's why I'm saying this thing could spread. Big money is definitely coming into podcasting, right?
Well, there's plus and minuses to
right
to that, and I know some people are very pro-union, and I don't know. I've always, I've never been in a place where there was required to have a union because it's either private. When I was active duty, there's no union in the military, and there's definitely no. It's interesting development, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's part of the, a lot of stuff that's going on in the podcast space right now is just indications of the medium growing up and becoming, more like any other big industry or big, that there's money coming in, large companies are involved, there's a lot of people involved. So you obviously have issues that keep coming up and more on the global scale here, there's another article that appeared in the Sounds Profitable blog as part of the Pod News. This came out.
Well, James made it very clear he has no editorial control over that.
Right.
Okay.
He doesn't. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Brian's been on the show.
Yeah.
Brian Barletta, but he's not the one that wrote this article. It was written by Sarah Toporov, who lives in Paris. And so she was talking about how there's, podcasting is doing well in France. And so there's been, if you think about the U.S. ecosystem around advertising and standards and things like that, we've tended to be very insular in creating standards around advertising for the U.S. market, right? But as we have been working in the podcast area tends to be a more global medium, and I'm kind of setting up this discussion, kind of setting the ground for what this article was about. But as we look at metric standards, and this has bubbled up actually out of Australia, I think earlier last year as well, was the desire for individual countries, separate countries, to come up with their own measurement standards.
Right.
And so that's now bubbling up in Paris, in France. Since they've had their own kind of advertising metrics around other forms of media, there's a whole ecosystem in the country of France that has kind of set standards and things like that for other forms of advertising. So what they've chosen to do here is step forward and come up with a new measurement standard for French podcasting. So, and they push back on the efforts on the part of the IAB here in the U.S. as, let me see if I can give an exact quote on this. It basically, let me see, I don't know if I can find the exact wording here, but the IAB standards are not enough.
That's kind of funny.
For them. So, and that's kind of what, and I'm probably going to be digging into more of this. I'm going to bring in, guests probably onto the podcast to talk about this possibility of other podcast metric standards being established outside of the U.S. and how those are different and how they're not different. But there's a lot of confidence in this article about the ACPM, which is a measurement organization, not unlike the IAB here in the U.S., that is starting to use server-side measurement technology to certify podcast hosting platforms. So it says it's similar to the IAB, but they don't stop there. They also publish a monthly ranker, not unlike what Podtrac does, or to some degree Triton, and then Chartable and and I already mentioned Podtrac, but they're combining, creating a measurement standard, right? Combining it with a certification process. So like the IAB currently they don't actually do the certification themselves. No. They actually outsource it to contractors to do that for them. It appears that the ACPM does all of it. They'll work with the industry to come up with a measurement technology standard, and then they have the same people come in and certify it, just like the IAB has done here in the U.S., and then they combine that with a monthly ranker of podcasts, popularity of podcasts, based on that. So I don't know what you think about that, Todd. Do we need duplicate measurement standards in every country or a lot of countries around the world?
Well, I don't think so, but the French go alone all the time.
They do, don't they?
So, yes. But yet they only have like $1.3 million in total advertising in the podcasting space in French. So I'm sure that new measurement system they're using is working out very well.
Well, I thought there was a very interesting quote in here. I don't know if you saw the article, but it said something to the effect of IAB doesn't go far enough because they've done a comparison between the IAB metrics and their own metrics, and their own metrics are 5 times lower than the IAB's.
Then they're really undervaluing. Then they don't understand the IAB measurement stuff.
Right.
Oh my God.
They're comparing the two and saying that their measurement standard is better because it's the IAB measurement. If they compare show to show, is 5 times. The IAB measurement is 5 times higher than their number.
Well, it sounds to me like they're getting scammed. You don't take... Okay, so I'm just be a little bit arrogant here. Just a little. You take 26 highly respected podcasting companies. You work for 2 to 3 years.
It was more than that, too.
Yeah,
right?
On a standard. And you scientifically, as a group, go through and look at the data and have many heavy conversations about how to measure and use proof. You know, there's significant work that went involved. And when someone tells me that the French have a measurement system that delivers numbers 5 times lower
than the IAB.
They're
lower.
They have lost their minds. They have absolutely lost their minds.
The ACAST France folks are supporting this.
They're idiots to do that.
Yeah, well,
Well, they have to do what the French says, but this ACPM has some sort of hold over people. Oh, guess what? As a podcaster, you have to pay. You have to pay.
Well, I don't know what the costs are here.
Oh, it shows right here. Membership fees start from £750 per year for a show that has under 100K downloads per month.
Okay.
Oh, they have 18 member publishers as of 15 October fall into this first bracket. So you have to pay them as a podcaster
to be in their ranker.
Apparently.
And to be certified. So, what I'm trying to figure out is, obviously Blueberry and Libsyn serve podcasts into the French market.
Yeah.
Right. So we host podcasts that are listened to in that market. And the question gets back to is, if we start selling or, facilitating the sale of French-based advertisers into podcasts that are listened to in France, right?
Yeah.
Then we get sucked up into this world.
Well, I've already sold into the French market, and they took the IAB certified downloads as the billing number.
Right.
So so the ACPM can pack sand.
But the pushback that I'm seeing here in this article, the only reason that I see this being an issue is that they say that the IAB has no brand acceptance or understanding or trust in the French market.
Well, that's their problem.
Yeah. So they feel like that the ad buyers in France don't recognize the IAB as
because the
measurement
ACPM
methodology.
The ACPM has a commercial play.
Right.
And they have some authority, whatever that may be, in France. And they've worked themselves into a niche. So they can basically go, you have to follow, because you're a French. I'm not going to participate.
Yeah. And I mean, that gets back to the question, right? Do all of the, each country that does this, do we all have to somehow play in this game? All of the hosting platforms globally. I mean, this bubbled up a little bit out of Australia, I think about a year ago. And fortunately, it got squashed as a development. Because all it's going to do is confuse the advertising market.
Every country is going to do their own thing. They're going to come up with their own things. It's up to podcasters.
Right.
In this case, podcasters are going to have to pay this organization to be measured. And they're using, quote unquote, they said they're using some sort of pixel similar, right. And we already talked about
with Chris
the issue with pixels.
Well, it's not really a pixel per se. That's just
They're using
an impression tracking.
They're using technology. Something similar to Chartable, something
Right. I mean, it's tech. I mean, that's a buzzword that's used in the advertising industry, right?
Right.
It's really not a pixel. So that's just what they're saying. So people are using the same terminology.
So 5 times more downloads.
Yeah.
Please, I can't even imagine.
I mean, I had to laugh at that. Really, if you think about it, is this like a race to zero? Is that what this is?
I can't even imagine what I would have to do to reduce. We've been doing this, Rob, for a long time, 15 years.
Well, Todd, what they're doing is they're saying that the IAB methodology isn't valid. They're basically undermining it, saying that we know better, and the IAB numbers are inflated.
No, they're saying they know better than 26 podcasting companies here in the United States. That's what they're saying.
It's not longer than they have.
Right.
So,
and it sounds to me like some arrogance.
I don't want to create a fight on this, but
I am. A little bit, I will.
I mean, a little bit of an aggressive move on their part to discredit what's going on in the U.S. when it's so much larger of an advertising market already because of it.
The IAB provides a standard that is certified by a third party.
Right. And I thought that the IAB had presence all over the world.
They do. They have a presence all over the world.
Right. So I'm not sure why.
It's just that, it's an American. It's
kind
the French.
Of a recognition.
It's the French. They don't like American standards. So it's pretty simple. Meanwhile, the French podcasters are going to get screwed. And the advertisers are not spending no money over there. Only $1.3 million in advertising for a whole country. Come on.
And it's probably going to stay that low too with measurement like that.
Yeah.
But their claim is that it's more accurate.
Yeah, whatever. It's, here's the thing. I don't even have to justify anything third party like that. Because I already know what has been involved right down to the itty bitty dirty little detail.
Right.
To get where we are and be very satisfied with the IEB standards. There's very few things in the IEB. Matter of fact, the IEB standard does allow you to go beyond the standard. And we do. At Blueberry, we go beyond the standard.
Right.
So we're even more tighter than the IEB is.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a minimum.
That's the minimum.
Dig deeper if you want.
Fraud prevention, all this other stuff that we do.
Right.
So
nobody's stopping you.
No.
From chasing the lower numbers. Yeah. And the article does talk about ACAST. Also is involved, I guess, in a similar initiative in Sweden as well. It's called Pod Index. That's PODD Index. And there's also one called Pod Toppen in Norway. I believe that these are rankers. I don't believe that these are metric standards, but they do. Well, it does says Pod Index and Pod Toppen are measurements and rankers launched by industry working groups, which include the Audit Bureau ACPM equivalent. It's called Kantar SIFO in Sweden. So I guess there has been this stuff going on, and we just haven't heard about it, Todd.
So this is the telltale thing here. There's got a problem. ACPM system is not without its flaws. Shows are ranked by total number of downloads in France, which doesn't paint the whole picture. The top spot in September was Cultural General, with more than 1.4 million downloads for 1,200 episodes, each around a minute long. But if ranked by number of downloads per episode, as a much different picture emerges. Injustices, a deeply reported and highly produced show from Louis Media, has nearly 2.5 times as many downloads per episode than the number 2 slot if ranked by this data point. So you got a show that's larger, more downloads, lower ranked. So it's shocking.
Yeah.
It has nearly 2.5 times as many downloads per episode than the number 2 slot if ranked by this data point.
So when we started down this path, Todd, I'm not sure that we envisioned this complication, right?
The Australians already were the ones that wanted to go it alone too. And then when they finally analyzed and did the analysis and looked at the IB numbers, they said, well, maybe what they have isn't so bad.
Yeah, why reinvent the wheel here and cause market confusion? Because that's exactly what this is going to create. So and then we're back to the same problem we were trying to solve to begin with, Todd, if you think about it.
Now, remember, $1.3 million is all they did in France.
Right. Well,
and yet,
not a huge country either. So
no, but yet, these podcasters are paying, for the pleasure of being part of ACPM, $1,000 a year, something to that effect. Oh, that's at the very low level of total number of downloads. So,
but what it does is it discredits the IAB numbers. That's the essential component of this.
Yeah.
Right. Now they can go and say to the media buyers that IAB numbers are inflated.
But let's be honest with you, not a lot of American media buyers are buying French. Matter of fact, I had to dig so deep to find enough.
No, it's people in France that are going to buy inventory.
Right. So I had a French
podcasts that are delivered to France.
Right. I had a French company buy advertising and podcast in France that we had an incredibly hard time to even fill.
Right.
To get to our minimum spend level per month, just because we couldn't find enough French inventory,
right,
to even do that. And I went around to almost everyone and said, "Hey, got any French shows that need advertising? 2, 3 here, 2, 3 there, 2, 3 there." And we couldn't hardly fill it because there just wasn't enough inventory. They can want to spend all the money they want, but until the French start creating more podcasts, it really means nothing. There's a reason. There's a reason why they've only got $1.3 million in advertising spend in France.
Right. Yeah. I like this quote in the article from a person from a company called Binge Audio. We already have trustworthy stats. We chose Acast because they respect the IAB V2 standards. But to grow our activity in a sustained way here in France, a third-party certification is essential.
Third-party certification was done, by IAB.
Yeah, but they're saying that a French certification is essential.
Okay, and they're going to count 5 times lower. Good luck with that.
Yep. How's that going to work?
Congratulations.
Think about it, right? Here's the IAB numbers. Here's the French certification numbers. Ad buyer, take your pick.
Right, right. Which one would you like to? Yeah.
But Todd, it's going to drive up ROI.
Yeah, sure.
It is, right?
Yeah, it is. So they should pay. They should
ROI.
So they should pay $125 CPM in France.
Right. So to make up for that, CPMs are going to have to be a lot higher.
Yeah, it's going to have to be 5 times as high.
Right. That doesn't make it more accurate. You're just playing a game with the numbers, just like what's always been done.
It's so interesting based on some phone calls I've had this week, this particular conversation.
Yeah. It raises lots of
when I do calls with certain media buyers and are asking me very uncomfortable questions.
Oh, has this come up with conversations?
Not
already?
for French, but it's come up.
Yeah.
Why am I having to pay this CPM with them and I pay this CPM with them?
Right.
You know, why is my performance here and my performance is here?
Right.
Talk about 2 different entities.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Oh.
I have a feeling we're going to be spending more time on that topic over the next couple of years.
Okay.
Just because it's going to keep happening, I think. Yeah.
Well, IAB Sweden has their hands full too, I guess, then.
Yeah, that's true.
And the Swiss do measurement the best, right?
Do they now?
I'm talking about Swiss watches and.
Oh, that's right. Those timekeepers.
Yes, they are. They're very good timekeepers.
Yes. So, what else is going on? Let's see.
I just. Go ahead.
I see Rode came out with a new little little recording setup. I don't know if you saw that, the Rode Launch Vlogger Kit.
They're about 5 years too late to the party on that. There's lots of vlogger kits, and I looked at their kit, and Rode. Someone gave you a bunch of press, and I kind of laughed because there's much better vlogger.
Well, isn't Rode an Australian company?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think they are. So you can see maybe a connection there, but that's not necessarily. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's a cool little thing that they have.
For someone that's never investigated vlogger stuff, though, Rob, I'm not endorsing it.
It seems like a dated term. to call it that.
Oh,
right?
there's still vloggers out there. There's lots of vloggers.
I know, but it feels a little dated.
Yeah, vloggers equal YouTubers.
Right. Now, I'm not sure that there's a better term to describe what that is, but
yeah,
just media creators. And I see that the Podimo folks, I guess, are pushing forward with the translation capabilities of taking a podcast and converting it into multiple languages. Saw that. The iHeart folks are playing around with that. And then I also saw
expensive
and
money.
I also saw another company that I got an email about called Poise. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah.
Narrated by Poise.com.
Yeah, just send your blog post over there and they'll narrate it.
Right. They'll actually do it with professional voiceover folks. So it isn't like this is a computer-generated podcast. So they'll fully produce it for you for, it's $11 for every 500 words.
Whoa.
So if you write your podcast, right, which you want it to do, then the voiceover artist will actually voice it and produce it for you and send it back to you. Right?
Yeah.
And they'll create an intro with a soundtrack. That's part of it as well. That's what it looks like.
I must be in the wrong business if this is actually a viable business model.
Says, say, can Poise narrate in other languages other than English? Yes. They say, let us know what you need.
Huh?
And it says, who owns the podcast? You own the podcast, they say.
But of course, you're paying for it.
Right. The source content is created by you because you wrote it. My question is, I'm not sure that a lot of people know how to write in a way that's good for voiceover.
Well, I know Andy McCaskey completely scripted his entire show.
Right. There's a skill in that.
Oh, there is. And I couldn't do it. And he did 20 minutes, and it took him 6 hours to basically prep for 20 every day. 6 hours of writing to prep for a 20-minute show.
I used to do it every week with my radio show I did for 6 years. I not 100% scripted it, but it was a lot of scripting going on with that because I was tight to the second that I had to produce that show. But yeah, I mean, it's a different form of writing. I mean, it's kind of like being a movie script writer.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to write for narrative that's a skill in itself. So I think that's probably one of the roadblocks they're going to face with this. Is that they're going to get a lot of people sending things to them that are not going to be easily converted to voice. I
would have to almost shoot myself if I was going to script a podcast. Here's the thing.
I'm going to let you talk about that.
Well, here's what it is. You burn out. There's no way.
Right.
It's just so much work involved. Right. And if you're doing any type of frequency, like 2 shows a week with any type of length, that's a massive. Now, if you're only putting out 10 episodes a year, maybe you can script it.
Right.
But if you're trying to put out any type of frequency, come on. And it's going to sound canned. It's not going to, how do you really write something that sounds natural?
Yeah, it's a skill. It's like being a screenwriter, right? For a film or a TV series, whatever. It's a specialized skill. It definitely. It also appears that this Poise site is doing unlimited hosting and plays and advanced analytics, and they offer an embedded player too.
Okay.
With the package, all for $11 every 500 words.
Of course, they're making hand over foot on the front end on that.
Right.
You think about 500 words. That's not a lot. An average blog post is about 300 to 350 words.
Isn't that about 4 or 5 decent-sized paragraphs, I think?
About, yeah.
Right. It's about the size. Well, I guess most written articles these days are probably in the 800 range. Right.
I think 800 is on the long side.
Yeah, that's true.
What is the what is the Book of Life said? What is the average word count?
I would imagine that's probably where they pulled that from, is the average length of a blog post, right? Or average length of an article is where they got that 500.
Let's see here.
But it's pretty cheap, $11. Wow.
So I was wrong. For SEO, the ideal blog post length should be between 21 and 2,400 words. We averaged the length of our most 50 most read blog posts in 2019, which yielded in an average word count of 2,330. Individual blog post lengths ranged from 333 to 5,581 words. Another article says, how many... I remember... Let's see here. How long should... So there's all kinds of articles about this, so everyone's got an opinion. Let's look.
Yeah, and also, what's the amount of words that you can say in a minute?
Oh, I think that's pretty well known. Yeah, okay, so let's look at it now. Speech is about 100 words per minute. Fast at 160. So if you're talking continuously, about 100 words a minute. So that means at $11, that's 5 minutes. So if you're going to do a 20-minute show, then you're looking at about $45 to do a 20-minute show.
Right. Okay. So you can kind of see what that business model looks like.
Yeah.
In a normal situation, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So again, it depends on how fast you speak as well. So I guess the normal speaking rate is 130 words per minute. Yeah. So you and I probably don't speak that fast because we pause a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
So 60 minutes would be about 6,000 words, or average about 7,800. And they said, how much do they charge?
$11 per 500 words. That includes hosting and web player and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
So they're throwing a bunch of stuff. I would imagine, I don't know, maybe they're outsourcing that. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure they have people that work on commission, and so they probably pay them half that much to do the voiceover work. Well, there's a model for everybody. There's a model for some, to just say, hey, all the time I'm getting calls and people are wanting to do weird things,
Yeah.
And people also trying to overthink podcasting. Yeah, I just kept telling this. I was on a call with someone from outside the United States, and they spoke English very well. And I says, podcasting is nothing more than a blog post with media added to the blog post. It's not any more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, this is very difficult. I'm like, no. I said, once you're set up, it's no more. And I brought up I had to bring up screen share, and I wrote a title, I wrote a description, I uploaded a media file, and I said, all I got to do to make that a podcast is hit publish. And the person says, it's got to be more complicated than that. No, it's not. It's not more complicated than that.
Doesn't have to be.
No. Don't overthink this. But it's the same thing with, we get 10 people on a conference call to talk about podcast hosting. When you're on speakerphone, you're like, oh my God, how many people are listening to this?
Right.
And everyone's got a question.
Todd, did you see this, that the Postal Service launched a podcast?
Yes, I did. I see they did.
60-second podcasts. That's about the shortest. This came up on Facebook too, kind of. But when you do a promo for your podcast or just an episode, your episode has to be at least a minute long, right?
Yeah, at least. How do you do a 60-second podcast?
Well, that I mean, if you're IAB certified, it may not get counted if it's
That's right. It actually won't get counted. Well,
Right.
maybe. Depends on what they're in. Yeah, it could be a problem.
Yeah. So you really can't create anything shorter than 60 seconds, or even, I don't know. I mean, right up to 60 seconds, Todd?
It has to be.
If you create a
we don't count until we
show, does it not get counted?
I'd have to ask Angelo that. It's usually 60. It's usually 60.1, I think, is the tick over.
Yeah, right. If it's 59, you may not see any stats.
That's right. It'd be 0. We didn't get no downloads. That's a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even quick and dirty tips is 2 or 3 minutes, or up to 5, I think.
Right. It's hard to deliver any kind of significant value.
No,
in a podcast.
Come on, a minute.
I mean, it's fine probably for a promo. I would, it's just to get your RSS feed going and get your distribution set before you launch.
Someone's making some bank on that deal. Or how long you want the podcast to be? A minute. Oh,
right. Well, it's being done by Spotify and Gimlet.
Well, good job on them, because I'm sure they're laughing all the way to the bank. They're probably paying that bankrupt organization is probably paying them $1,000 an episode for a minute.
Well, what's funny about this is there's a quote in here that says that the podcast is a feel-good, uplifting postal carrier stories podcast.
You're telling a story in a minute.
It's a pretty short story. I don't know how uplifting.
All right, let's create one here. So, the Susie Jones walked up to the house to deliver the mail, and at the door was a dog wagging its tail. She said, "Hi, doggy, how are you?" And every day for 5 years, and when the dog passed, the owner gave the mail carrier a snippet of hair from the dog. There's a 1 minute. That's just, come on.
Hey, Todd, I'm going to play one of these because I've got my other computer now plugged into this.
Oh, okay.
And so I can play one. This is one that's from Kyle West from Cincinnati, Ohio. It's only a minute long, so I'll play it. Let's see what it sounds like.
This episode of Heavyweight is brought to you by the United States Postal Service. Each day, thousands of Postal Service workers deliver millions of pieces of mail through all kinds of conditions across the country. Each Postal Service worker has a story worth sharing. Like Kyle West. Kyle is a 23-year-old letter carrier from Cincinnati, Ohio. At the beginning of the pandemic, Kyle used his route to deliver a note to hundreds of older Americans. The note said, "If you are at risk and need help getting essential items, let me know. I will do what I can to help." He signed the message, "Sincerely, Mailman Kyle." The response was overwhelming. Mailman Kyle has made numerous trips to deliver essential groceries to senior citizens and received both local and national attention for his generosity. That's just one example of U.S. Postal Service workers serving their community. For more stories of inspiration from the U.S. Postal Service, visit gimletmedia.com/USPS.
So was that a minute?
All right, that was 1 minute and 7 seconds, Todd.
Actually pretty impressive.
It was. It was a nice production, I have to say.
And it had a little intro. They had an outro. So they spent about...
Probably 40 seconds of content?
Yeah, maybe 40 seconds of content.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, it can be done, Rob.
I guess so.
So they got that minute and 7 seconds in there so they could count it.
Right. Somebody knew what they were doing, right? It wasn't 59 seconds.
No, it was a minute 7. So they got past that 7-second mark. Yeah.
Right.
I kind of was pretty close, right? I was pretty close about the dog wagging and saying hello to the dog. You see, it's pretty close.
You were.
Yeah.
There's another one here too, and I'll click on it real quick just to see the duration of it.
This episode of Heavyweight is brought to you by the United States Postal Service.
This one is 59 seconds.
Thousands of Postal Service workers.
Okay, so someone in chat said, that is an automated voice that radio stations use, not a person.
No, it's called National Public Radio, right?
Workers deliver millions of pieces of mail through all kinds of conditions across the country. Each postal service worker has a story worth sharing. Like Gail Branham. Gail refers to herself as Chief Elf for the USPS Operation Santa program, connecting gift givers with children in need. Specifically, children who write letters to Santa Claus. In Gail's work...
Yeah.
Okay.
So that one's 59 seconds, Todd.
All right.
So that one didn't get counted.
So are we going to give our takedown notice for playing
another podcast
That's
on
right.
the show?
I think that's the first time we've ever done that. So credit goes to gimlet.com.
It's fair use, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
fair use.
Yeah, gimlet.com/USPS. There's
Right.
go check it out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
funny.
So, yeah, I thought that
Well,
was
you
interesting.
know, I think it's true though. It's that they proved here. You know, we laughed at them, but they were able to,
Yeah.
you know, put together a nice little piece in 60 seconds. They're going to do
Right.
how many of those? They paid for a certain number,
Yeah. I'm not sure.
30 or something like that. Or it wasn't that many.
So it said that that many of the stories were narrated by Jonathan Goldstein, looks like, who's been a podcaster for Gimlet for a long time.
It definitely had that NPR sound.
It did, definitely.
You know, that's when I hear that kind of like background music and timing and that airy, God, don't ever if we ever sound like that, ladies and gentlemen, please call us out. I don't want to sound like NPR ever.
Well, it's this movement in the podcasting space about audio branding, right? And a lot of shows, especially ones that are being done, you know, what would be called kind of branded podcasts, are being produced in that form these days. I would call this a branded podcast. I mean, this is the prototypical definition of what a branded podcast is, right? Telling stories about customers, or, you know, creating a brand association that helps highlight what the brand represents.
There's very few people that hate their mail carrier to begin with. Who do you leave? Who do you leave cookies at Halloween and Christmas and a Christmas present?
Yeah.
You know, your mail carrier probably gets as many presents as anyone.
Yeah.
Where I live here in the country, we always put a present in the mailbox for the mail carrier. So, you know, mail carriers, as much as we dog on the USPS, the mail carriers are, you know, they deliver the mail. So, you know, there's very few people that hate mail carriers. Dogs.
Not at all. I think they're probably one of the most popular agencies of sorts. I don't even know if it's a full agency. I think it's of the federal government, but
well, I think they're a private entity. I think
they're separate.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right.
Again,
but
I might
they
be
do
wrong.
have a connection to the government, though.
Yeah, but or responsibility to the government. But anyway, I think that, and I don't like going to the post office and standing in line. They're always slow, you know, and it feels like a government agency when you go into the USPS. Because they really are.
They're really a long time. Right?
They're really not that efficient, you know. Of course, you know, how efficient can you be in just getting packages in boxes?
Also, Todd, did you see the stats that came out between that? You know, looking at the stats between Buzzsprout and Libsyn. I don't know if you saw the stats that came out.
No. What was that in reference to?
In those areas. Well, Buzzsprout put out an infographic of sorts that kind of showed who their, you know, what's the distribution of what platforms are listening to podcasts coming off of, you know, Buzzsprout. And then Libsyn also, you know, Rob Walsh puts out, you know, data all the time on the feed. And we put out an infographic as well, talking about, you know, the distribution of where people are listening to podcasts.
Yep.
And I thought one of the big things that came out of that was the difference between Buzzsprout and Libsyn on Spotify and Apple.
Wait till you see our numbers.
Right. Buzzsprout is showing that Apple is only 47% of the market. and Spotify is pulling, I think, 24%.
Yeah, we're not.
And Libsyn is showing like 60+% on Apple and only like 9% for Spotify.
Mike worked on some data for us, and I want to verify it before we announce anything, because we're really going to get asked some questions, because our Spotify numbers are nowhere near even your numbers.
I think it depends on the composition of the content.
Oh, that's probably true too.
I think that's a factor I've been thinking a lot about. Plus, I also they also put out, both infographics put out numbers around like the mean download size of shows that are hosted on the platform.
Right.
Which is another kind of window into what's going on here too. Libsyn put out that the top 5% or the top 6.5% of shows that are hosted on Libsyn get 5,000 or more downloads per episode. But you look at Buzzsprout, and they put out the same basic information, saying the top 5% of their shows get above 564 downloads.
Oh, they didn't even say.
No, 654 downloads.
Mm.
So you can see a difference there of the top 5 shows on Buzzsprout,
top 5%. You mean
the top 6% on Libsyn? That's a huge difference in audience size.
Huge.
Yeah. So probably a lot of the shows that are on, you can draw the conclusion, a lot of the shows that are on Buzzsprout are smaller shows that are catering to the Spotify audience. I mean, more and more, right? So it's just a little glimpse into how Spotify is, I think, different demographically compared to traditional podcasting.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. You see our numbers, and they're definitely not catering to Spotify. Our customers,
right.
No, I mean, like, I was actually asked. I asked Mike twice.
Half of ours, or something, or
less than half, or more than half.
Half of
Libsyn? Yeah. So I was asking Mike. I said, "You sure you got all the?" Because there's like 3 different Spotifys. There's Spotify iOS, Spotify Android, and then one other. We get 3 different numbers for Spotify. And I'm like, you sure that's right? I said, let's have a meeting next week and talk about this. Make sure we're not missing something. Because right. if we really dumped what we calculated out there, people would be like, huh?
Right.
But here's one thing we do see is a huge diversity in different ways people consume podcast content.
Right.
We still have Apple above 50%, but there's this whole segment. I mean, a huge, big number that makes up to maybe 60, 70 different types of devices and platforms that consume content. So it runs the gambit. And we had Zune got 4 last month, 4 downloads on Zune last month.
Really? Across the whole network?
Yeah.
Great. Go Zune.
Go Zune on more than 6 digits and higher. Is that the right way? 6 digits and higher of total monthly downloads, and Zune got 4.
Wow. I'm amazed that it's still showing up at all, actually.
It's somebody. It's one person that's listened to one show.
Right. I mean, I still have a Zune in my drawer down here. The Zune HD, but I don't use it.
Mike says, though, our Android numbers are bigger. And, we've always led in Android numbers, so...
Yeah. But also it was, I believe Libsyn puts out a top 50% of episodes. What's the, downloads per month.
Per month.
This is the top 50% of episodes get 133 downloads per month. So that's a 4-week window, right?
Yeah.
Which is typically used for advertising purposes. So that, and I believe on Buzzsprout it was double digits. It was like half of that probably.
I haven't run that number in a while, but I do know that.
Yeah.
we have to be careful because I have to look at active shows, not shows that are,
right.
Because the
Right. It's not fair
non-active
to
shows
compare.
can drag everybody else down. But
Right.
in all the years that I did that same, because Rob would denounce that number, then I'd go back and run it and work for a couple hours to get that number. And I think that we've been higher than that for quite a long time, but I haven't run that number in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I actually need Angela's assistance in pulling that number out. That's not something I can push a button and get the
Right.
get the query run.
And I did see some difference between Buzzsprout and Ellipson in the countries, the top 20 countries that are listening to podcasts too. So I didn't see a big difference between the two, but there were a couple different ones. Like I believe Germany wasn't as high as Libsyn is, and things like that. So
let's see here. I can give you what our top countries were for October because I pulled that for a different report. Let me go find it here.
Yeah, Libsyn goes the U.S., UK, Canada, Australia, Germany, Sweden, Mexico, France, India, Japan, and Brazil and Spain.
Yeah, so here's my numbers: U.S., Canada, UK, Brazil, Australia, Germany, Japan, France, India, Sweden, Russian Federation, Spain. That's our
Russian Federation. Wow.
That's our top 12, and Russia is 11.
Wow, interesting. Russia doesn't even show up on our list. Well, it does at the very bottom of the list.
But you guys have a heavy Spain, right? So Spain's pretty high in your list, right?
I think the big difference, Brazil, you were ranking a lot higher.
We have Brazil number 4, but we have a lot of PowerPress users that are in Brazil. So
yeah, ours is pretty high in Australia. Where does Australia sit with you guys?
Number 5. U.S., Canada, UK, Brazil, Australia, then Germany.
Okay. It's 4 for us.
Yeah,
and then Germany, and then Sweden.
Yeah. Well, Sweden for me is 9.
Oh,
no. Sweden for me is 10.
10.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've got I've got some that probably you don't. I've got Japan at number 7. France 8. Yeah.
Japan for us is 10.
Yeah.
And then
let's see here.
We also have South Korea and Iran in our list too.
So here's how we break down our consumption, and I don't have the percentages. I just have the top. How many have I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got the top 14, and by the time I get to the last one, I think it's close to 1%. But Apple Podcast app, iPhone Podcast app and player, Podcast Addict, Android smartphone, Chrome desktop, Chrome mobile, Overcast, Stitcher Radio for Android, Google, Castbox, Pocket Cast, Spotify for Android, Spotify for iOS, and Firefox. But we still have a lot of people using desktops.
Right.
But when it comes to
you do.
Yeah.
Wow.
So but when you come to an app, Apple Podcast app, iPhone Podcast app, Podcast Addict, if I skip then next, Overcast, Stitcher Radio for Android, Google Podcast app, Castbox, Pocket Cast, Spotify for Android, Spotify and Spotify for iOS. So, but my Spotify numbers are really low. Well, comparably a lot less than.
Yeah.
But again, we're measuring shows that don't also podcast with us either, that are not hosting with us. So this includes,
right?
That's like probably 50, 55,000, maybe as high as 60,000 different shows. Again, I have to look and see how many were active in the month of October. I don't have that number in front of me.
Right.
But I have my Android split, and I think Mike came up. I think it's close. I think we still have Apple. If you look at all the different Apple apps, not just Apple Podcasts, it's 60 something.
Yeah, you have to roll it up into one number.
Yeah. All the different iOS is 60 some percent.
Plus, that catalog is pushed out to a lot of the smaller apps too.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the other interesting part of that. Yeah. So, what's your percentage for Google Podcasts?
I don't have the percentage in front of me.
Okay.
But I've got it ranked like
just under 2% for us.
Let me see here. If I look at I know where the Android number is, so it's higher. It's probably it's higher than that. But again, it should be because we've been heavy pushing Android.
On the Android side, right?
Yeah.
And these numbers are for September of.
All right, my numbers were for
2020. Yeah.
October. Yeah.
Are they? Yeah.
So, but again, I want to maybe I have something more concrete. I just need Mike and I need to go over the database, and I probably need to ask Angela a couple of questions because I didn't want to put something out that
right
was going to people go WTF over.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I mean, probably the biggest thing that jumped out between the Buzzsprout and Libsyn was the difference with Spotify. And just like what you've said, it just really speaks to how Spotify is so different in the space. Because prior to Spotify, all of our numbers were pretty close to being aligned with each other.
But if I have I have a huge number of business shows, and they're more aligned with not being consumed on Spotify.
Right. Like I'm sure this show doesn't get listened on Spotify much at all.
No.
Yeah. So.
Well, let me go look.
Why don't you go look, Todd? I would love to know some more about our numbers here.
Let's see here. Blueberry.com.
I'm sure our listeners would love to know too.
Yeah, they're listening. Let me go to the dashboard. Oh, I got to sign in. Yes, I'm not a robot.
Not yet, anyway.
Right. And come on. I'm on a computer I don't normally use because I left my Mac at home today. Let's see here. So I'm on my Windows machine.
Yeah, I left my Mac at home too, Todd.
I'm sure you did. Okay, So for the lifetime of this show, we've had 2.3 million downloads.
So is that audio and video?
I think so. Let me look. Yep, audio and video. And let's look at.
And can you tell what the percentage distribution is between audio and video, or that's two different lookups probably?
Yeah, I'll have to. Let me just do a rough. Let me see, make sure I'm hovered right. It's, I think about 80-20.
80% audio, 20% video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not bad.
That's actually more than I was anticipating.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm only loading October, because if I look at lifetime, that totally skews it. All right, let's look at clients. So for us, iOS is at 38%. Overcast is at 13%. Wow. Chrome Desktop is at 11%. Pocket Cast at 7%. Podcast Addict at 6%. Stitcher Radio 5%. iPhone. This would be the if someone's listening on the iPad, 3.1. Google Podcast, not very good, 2%. Stitcher Radio for iOS, 1.3%.
Well, that's pretty close to the market share that I see in the Libsyn stats. 2% for Google. Right.
So not bad. And then let's break it out by geography. Where are let's look at the world. And we have 45 countries that listen to us. Wow, the French are listening, Rob. Check this out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Wow. We've actually got about 400 people that listen in France.
Wow.
So United States is number 1, France is number 2, UK is number 3, Canada number 4, Australia number 5. For some reason, we're popular in the Dominican Republic. I don't know why. Who's listening in the Dominican Republic? Norway 6, Italy 7, Denmark 8. Wow. That's interesting.
Wow. Right.
I would have never have guessed Dominican Republic. See here: Denmark, Sweden, Japan, India, Portugal, Ireland, Germany, Philippines, Mexico, New Zealand, Netherlands. Let me get down to the single numbers. Colombia, Latvia, Egypt, Qatar, Thailand, Malaysia. We've got one download from each of those countries.
Wow. Okay. We're rocking it in those countries.
Yes, we're rocking it in those countries. Now let's look at the United States. Where's our most? We must be popular with the weed smokers because we're number 1 in Colorado.
Really?
Number 2 in California, 3 in New York, 4 in Georgia, 5 Virginia, Washington, Florida, New Mexico, Wisconsin, Texas, and Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Pennsylvania. Let's see if there's a 1 here. In Iowa, who's our sole listener out in Iowa? We have 1 listener in Iowa. Oh, that's hilarious.
Do we have some listeners in Pennsylvania and in New York? I can't remember on
Let's
the
see
list.
Yeah, we do. They're about midway down. So
midway down. Okay.
So let's look at Canada. How many do we have in Canada? So Ontario's the number 1 province, Quebec, British Columbia, Manitoba, and we've got 10 that listen to us in Alberta.
Okay.
The UK,
that's great.
Yeah, so there's 46 regions, and how many do we cover?
And down in Australia, what's going on down there?
I don't have much of a breakout for Australia. I have U.S., Canada, UK, Brazil. Let's look at Brazil. Oh, we've got a total of 13 listeners in Brazil.
Wow.
Germany, we get
France. That's right. France was pretty big.
Yeah, Germany, we don't have that many. There's it looks like we got about 15 or 16. Pretty good showing in Mexico, about 40 to 50. UK is pretty high, 1,400 or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, Denver, here's our biggest cities because we got the metro areas. So Denver, LA, New York, Atlanta, Albuquerque, Seattle, Norfolk, Albany, Wausau, and then there's more, but San Francisco, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Boston, Lexington, Dallas. Let's go all the way down, find out where we've got 1 listener. Oh, we got a number in some markets. In Syracuse, South Bend, Indiana, Harrisburg, Virginia, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Columbia, Jefferson City, Missouri, Jackson, Mississippi, Roanoke, Lynchburg, Virginia, and Topeka, Kansas. We've got 1 listener in each of those areas.
Todd, I think we have to expand our marketing. What do you think?
Well, we've got, the surprising one was on that world. Who is in the Dominican Republic that's listening to us? Please, you need to check in.
Let us know. We want to come down and visit.
Who's listening to us in the Dominican Republic? I've never seen that on any other list. I'm looking at our show. I'm like, where did that come from?
Interesting.
It's not that many, 155, but that's for the whole month.
Well, isn't is John Lee Dumas down there? I'm trying to remember.
No, he's in
Puerto Rico.
In Puerto Rico.
He's in Puerto Rico. Right.
Yeah. So platforms, where does it fall out? Okay, here's how it falls out. Platforms: iOS 59.3, Android 16.8, Windows 11.3, and then all other platforms 8%. So, and then there's others. I don't know what others includes.
Fringe operating systems, right?
And believe it or not, we've seen an increase across the board on Chromebook OS. Lots more people since the beginning of the pandemic. We've seen that particular device has really grown because people are buying them for their kids and school.
They're cheap.
They're cheap.
They're really cheap, right? And they're capable. So,
but we still have 11 people that listen to the show that's on OS 2.
What?
How long has that been gone? More than 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, so this will be fun. Let me go look at the client list and go all the way to the bottom. So we got 43 total clients that listen to the show.
So when we say clients, we're talking about software and devices, right?
Right. Zoom Tablet 1, Winamp 1, Radio Public 2, Beyond Pod for Android 2, FeedStation 2, Chromebook, there's the 4. Windows Media Player 4, Pandora for Android, TuneIn, Google Play Music, Podcast, Podcruncher, Java, Safari, Firefox, Spotify for Windows, Chromecast, AntennaPod, iCatcher, Gpodder, Castbox, Player FM, Spotify for, there's our numbers for Spotify. There's one. So write this down, Rob, 27.
20. Over what period of time are we talking about here?
This is a month.
That's this past month?
Yeah, that's in November. Alexa, iTunes, Castos, Chrome. So we have a total, that listen to us for one. This is all the episodes. So 51 plus 27. So 78. So divide that by 8 episodes. So about 8 people are listening to us over there. But the bulk of it is iOS app, Overcast,
right?
Chrome Desktop, Pocket Cast, Podcast Addict. Yeah, because the numbers just drop like a rock once you get like past the top 5 or 6. So it's kind of funny.
It's not unusual.
And yeah, I'm looking at the rest of the things. We got a lot of traffic from.
Yeah, what's the most popular episode we've done?
Oh, let's go look at that. I don't know if I can. Let's look for October. What was the most popular episode in October? Oh, by far was the October 7th edition of the New Media Show. It was by far the largest, with just about 15,190 total downloads for October 7th. And it varies. It's, there's a few episodes that are 8, 9, 7,400, 4,300. Let me see. Did we get the same reaction on?
So you said October, is that Mr. Adam Carolla or Adam Curry?
I don't know. We'll have to look at the October 7th show.
I'm going through the list right now. Let's see here if we can find it. October 7th. So the October 9th one is RSS 2.0. That was just you and I.
If it was the 9th, it was probably the 7th, because look at the media file date. Sometimes I'm a couple days late in getting the...
Okay, October 4th one was the one we did with Adam Curry.
And let me look at I got to roll this up here so I can, crap.
So, yeah, October 4th was the published date for the Adam Curry guest spot.
So it's probably then the next one. Let me look.
So that was our discussion about RSS 2.0.
Yeah, so it would not have been the Adam Curry interview. It was the following show.
So October 9th was the published date on your blog.
Yeah, and that would have been episode 405.
405, right.
Yeah.
So that was just you and I talking.
Well, see, there you go.
That whole episode.
And what's that? What did I title that episode?
RSS 2.0.
Oh, see,
what now?
Yeah. And let me look at Adam's interview. The 4th. That one didn't do so great.
Adam Curry?
Yeah, that one did not do that good. Interesting.
What does that teach us, Todd? You think?
But we kind of knew already, Rob.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So would you say that there's a trend line that whenever we have guests, the numbers aren't as high?
He only did it with audio and video, 4,900 on the 3rd.
I just wonder if the pattern is, if we have a guest, the numbers are lower.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised at that one, but yeah, you never know, right?
Well, I'd like to be able to plot it out so I know what to do with the show. If it's just it takes a lot of effort to get guests in here, and if it's not keeping people happy with what they want, then maybe we shouldn't do it.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised that Adam Curry's interview didn't do better, because they don't know. Well, interesting.
Maybe he just does. Maybe he doesn't have the influence that he used to have. Just people don't know who he is, really.
Yeah, but that RSS 2.0 one really got some action.
Yeah, that's when. I mean, it was also about talking about the future of RSS too, which is. I can see that being a episode that people would have an interest in, but that was also our discussion with Adam Curry too.
Yeah,
but it wasn't obvious that's what we talked about.
And
so maybe it would have been better to title that episode about what we talked about, not so much Adam Curry.
So the episode that did real well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it was all apps. So that tells me
all apps.
Almost the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 8 download clients were podcast apps for that show. So now let's go look at Adam's interview. Let me back up.
It'd be interesting to know which of the episodes that did well video wise on the video download side.
Oh yeah, I can look at
did well as well.
So let's look on Adam's interview. Yeah, almost the same. Yeah. Apps dominate the top 10. Because I was looking to see if there was any web, if there was one of those episodes snuck in some web stuff. But what's interesting to me is the numbers are kind of like this. So there's a lot of people that aren't subscribed.
They're cherry picking.
They're cherry picking. So, but if I look at it, it looks like if I was looking at our trending line, month to month.
Well, because we went from one episode a week to 2 episodes a week. I'm just wondering how that impacted the overall numbers. If we declined because we're splitting the audience across the week, or if we basically doubled the audience because people were watching it twice a week.
From March until April, we saw about a 0.25% increase. In May, we about doubled. June, we about doubled. July, we did not. That's
about the time we converted to 2 episodes a week, right?
I thought we did it. Okay, well, we'll have to go back and look. Yeah, I think earlier. But August, holy crap, we had a big month in August. And then September was similar to April, May, and June. October down a little bit. Overall down.
Well, August we did of last year. We did some live on stage events. Right?
August was big.
Oh no, not. Yeah, this past year August was. Yeah, we didn't do any on stage events.
Yeah, and then we're trending. This is November. We're behind for November. So who knows? We'll see.
Well,
the show has grown though. Continuous. There's almost a continuous growth line until September and October. We took a hit, but let me look in previous years. Yeah. Let me go back out 3 years.
So I think in August, the only guest that we had, I think we had Rob Walsh on August 24th.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have any guest on, I think, for the rest of that month. Oh, Dan Franks was on August 13th. So we had 2 guests.
So we had a massive bump between March and April. April, May, June, July was good. Then we had a massive bump in August. September was big. October was was still higher than what we did in April. But November is not looking so good.
What happened?
I don't know.
The wheels fall off the cart, Todd?
Something maybe. Maybe. I don't know. But November is looking a little thin.
What's happened, Todd? What happened to us?
I don't know. I'm looking back here. I'm like, we haven't had, November's been pretty good for us, but not this month. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's interesting.
What has changed? What has changed all of a sudden?
I don't know.
Caused us to drop. I mean, is there any clue at any particular platform dropped us?
I didn't look.
Dropped a lot.
I'll have to go look. We definitely took a little bit of a nosedive in November. We're probably half. We're probably half of what we did. Well, no, we're not quite half of what we did. We got some. We still have a few days left to pull it out.
Get on that, Todd. Get on that.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we're out of time here.
We are. We've bored everyone with our numbers.
Right. Now our numbers are going to continue to plummet.
Yeah, that's right. You've left us.
I feel dejected now, Todd.
Well, and it is what it is.
Right.
All right, everybody. Make sure you subscribe.
Right. Please do. Yes.
Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter.
Rob at Rob Greenlee on Twitter, and then you can certainly send me an email, robg@lipson.com.
And I guess we are going to be here on Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have, we'll be able to pull them in after the Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
dinner.
hopefully.
Yeah.
People will be bored. So a lot of cigar podcasters travel to the Dominican Republic, Ed says. Thanks, Ed. So, if you're in the Dominican Republic, we need an email. Who are you? Or who are all of you that are listening to this show down in the DR?
It's one person? Is that what
No. It was like 1,500 or something. Some crazy number.
1,500?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Who's listening down there?
Wow.
I may have to go have that investigated by the stats team.
That's right. I think we'll have to take a special investigation trip down there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time here on the New Media Show. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.